Barbara. I believe this photo shows who Kurt Aland was really serving. Now let's look at another man who was involved with the Nestle's text. His name is Bruce Metzger. Bruce Metzger was a professor at Princeton Theological Seminary. He was also one of the creators of the New Revised Standard Version. At his death in 2007, Princeton Theological Seminary would write, in 1993, Bruce Metzger presented a copy of the New Revised Standard Version Catholic edition to Pope John Paul II at the Vatican. Bruce Metzger understood and was passionate about the significance of biblical translation for ecumenical dialogue. This article goes on to say, in 1972, he chaired the subcommittee that translated 3rd and 4th Maccabees and Psalm 151 for an expanded version of the Apocrypha. He personally presented this expanded version to His All Holiness Demetrius I in 1976. It was important to him that Roman Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and Protestant Christians be able to have recourse to a common biblical text as an instrument of unity. Here we see Demetrius I listed with Catholic priests. It is no secret that the Orthodox Church has been working with Roman Catholicism for a very long time. In this article, Archbishop Demetrius is said to be teaching at a Roman Catholic Jesuit university. Here we see the current Greek Orthodox Patriarch, Bartholomew I, meeting with Nancy Pelosi. In this article, we can see what he is working to accomplish. His All Holiness has worked tirelessly for reconciliation among Christian churches and acquired an international reputation for raising environmental awareness throughout the world. He has worked to advance reconciliation with the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Communion, as well as other confessions, through theological dialogues and personal encounters with respective leaders in order to address issues of common concern. Why would a supposed Christian like Bruce Metzger work with and for these enemies of Jesus Christ? Now let's take a look at another member of the Nestle's team. His name is Carlo Maria Martini, and he is a Jesuit priest. In April of 2005, the BBC ran this article where they claimed that if elected, Cardinal Martini would be the first Jesuit to become Pope. However, a few weeks later, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger was chosen as the next Pope instead of Martini. On page 45 of the Nestle's 27th edition we read, the text shared by these two editions was adopted internationally by Bible societies, and following an agreement between the Vatican and the United Bible Societies, it has served as the basis for new translations and for revisions made under their supervision. This marks a significant step with regard to interconfessional relationships. It should naturally be understood that this text is a working text in the sense of a century-long Nestle tradition. It is not to be considered as definitive, but as a stimulus to further efforts towards defining and verifying the text of the New Testament. For many reasons, however, the present edition has not been deemed an appropriate occasion for introducing textual changes. One can only be left to wonder what the Jesuit Cardinal Carlo Martini has planned for the next edition of the Nestle's text. Next, we'll take a look at this Jehovah's Witness Greek Interlinear New Testament. On pages 8 through 9, we read about what text is used by the Jehovah's Witnesses to produce their corrupt New World Translation. The Greek text that we have used as the basis for the New World Translation is the reason of its acknowledged excellence, but we have also taken into consideration other texts, including those prepared by D. Eberhard Nestle, the Spanish Jesuit scholar José María Bover, and another Jesuit scholar, A. Merck, the UBS text of 1975 and the Nestle Aland text of 1979, were consulted to update the critical apparatus of this edition. The preface of this Catholic New American Bible shows that they also use the Nestle's text as the basis for their translation. It is important for you, the viewer, to realize that if you have a Bible version produced since 1881, then it can be traced back to this corrupt Nestle's Greek text. The Jesuit plan to destroy the Protestant Reformation is no longer being carried out in secret. Today, the signs of Catholic infiltration are everywhere. Why would the Catholic News Agency report on the release of the newest NIV when the Council of Trent supposedly condemned the writings of Protestants? Maybe it is because Catholic websites openly promote and recommend the NIV. Here on AmericanCatholic.org, Catholics are warned about the King James Version being woefully outdated. But the NIV is praised and is said to be an ecumenical translation. It is also interesting to note that the new revision of the NIV is to be completed in 2010 on the 400th anniversary of the Jesuit Douay-Rheims Bible. But it isn't just Catholic websites promoting new versions like the NIV. Supposedly Protestant bookstores like ChristianBook.com are now selling Roman Catholic books and Bibles. Simply typing in the word Catholic in the search area netted 5,098 results. Here we see a book for Catholic girls that contains verses from the NIV. Or how about a book on the Rosary? ChristianBook.com also sells the Catholic Catechism. Here on Berean Christian Store's website, you can see that they sell 2,483 Catholic-related items. Books like Born Fundamentalist, Born Again Catholic. Or how about a book on the Holy Eucharist? Here we see another supposedly Protestant website selling Roman Catholic literature. It is interesting to note that these three websites will not sell most of the books and materials that are available today which defend the King James Version. One can only be left to wonder who really runs these websites.
May I present Reverend Dr. Donald McCoy, representing the presiding Bishop Mark Hansen of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Holiness, may I present Bishop Jeremiah J. Park, Bishop of the New York Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Wesley Granberg Michelson, the General Secretary of the Reformed Church in America. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. Clifton Kirkpatrick, the stated clerk of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in the United States. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. William J. Shaw, President of the National Baptist Convention, United States. Your Holiness, may I present Bishop James Leggett, General Superintendent of the International Pentecost Holiness Church. Your Holiness, may I present Dr. Leith Anderson, President of the National Association of Evangelicals. Your Holiness, may I present Bishop David H. Benke, President of the Atlantic District of the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod.
The leaders of the emergent church movement are now calling for the end of the Protestant Reformation. Here, Brian McLaren openly confesses that he is a post-Protestant, Catholic, unfinished Christian. In 2003, Tony Jones released this book on youth ministry. He openly recommends many Roman Catholic practices, the most shocking of all being an entire chapter on Ignatius Loyola and the Jesuits. On page 233, he recommends the occult New Age practice of walking a labyrinth. He then goes on to boldly recommend the spiritual exercises of Ignatius Loyola. These mind control techniques have been used by Jesuits for hundreds of years. On page 103, Tony Jones suggests forming a 30-day Ignatian summer camp. It is also interesting to note that both McLaren and Jones have their books published by Zondervan, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, as we discussed earlier. Please notice the interesting symbol on this emerging church website. Does it look familiar? Clicking on this link will take you to their bookstore where you can buy a book about the Roman Catholic Mass, or perhaps a book on Catholic evangelism. Another spokesman for the emerging church is a woman named Phyllis Tickle. On pages 46 through 47 of her book, she writes, "Now, some 500 years later, even many of the most die-hard Protestants among us have grown suspicious of Scripture and Scripture only. We question what the words mean, literally, metaphorically, actually. We even question which words do and do not belong in Scripture and the purity of the editorial line of descent of those that do. We begin to refer to Luther's principle of sola scriptura, scriptura sola, as having been little more than the creation of a paper pope in place of a flesh and blood one. And even as we speak, the authority that has been in place for 500 years withers away in our hands. Where now is the authority circles overhead like a dark angel goading us toward disestablishment? Where indeed?" On page 58, she discusses the Counter-Reformation and claims that the 5 Councils of Trent were godly assemblies of churchmen trying to purify both doctrine and practice. On pages 150 through 151, she